Hello and welcome to the April 5th edition of This Week in South Carolina in Session. I'm Gavin Jackson outside the State House here in Columbia. Well, it was a bit of a protracted Thursday up here at the State House. We know Thursdays are pretty quick moving, but this is the day, the last legislative working day before crossover day on Tuesday, which is April 10th. And of course, all the bills that make it through today will make it through on Tuesday and then make it over to the Senate just in time for that crossover deadline. We'll have some more details about the importance of that day at the end of this broadcast. But first, we want to get into what we did see coming out of the House today after several hours of debate. And that was a solar bill sponsored by Representative James Smith, a Democrat from Columbia, H4421. Now, that pro-solar growth bill actually was at the center of a lot of debate today, but we did see a broad bipartisan coalition pass that bill on to the Senate after it gets a perfunctory third reading. But this came after lawmakers critically debated another bill, H5045, which is a utility-backed bill dealing with solar energy production that was a little bit more limited in its scope, and what other solar proponents said really didn't do enough for the growing solar industry, especially since it only doubled the 2% solar rooftop panel production cap from 2% to 4%. Representative James Smith's bill actually eliminates that cap altogether, which they said they're going to reach later this year, which would also jeopardize some 3,000 solar industry jobs. Now, he did mention that this bill would cost around $1.2 million a year for energy companies like Duke Energy, which was really kind of pushing hard against this bill, saying that this bill continues to help subsidize customers when it comes to solar industry, and that customers end up paying for that. But under this bill, those costs would shift to the company itself, such as Duke Energy, which is why it would cost around $1.2 million, which Smith says that the company, which pays out high dividends and has high executive pay, could easily absorb through higher efficiencies and even trim back some of those compensatory things such as salary pay. So a lot of back and forth there, a lot of moving parts on that. We did see some sniping on the House floor, but overall we did see that bill pass. I mean, especially coming on the heels of the situation with the VC Summer Nuclear Project and the SCNG debacle, which also included Santee Cooper. A lot of people really have been putting a lot of hopes on this solar bill because the solar industry has been growing, albeit slowly, but they did see this time as being the right time for solar to kind of get this boost, especially since they've been pushing for some of these pro-solar friendly bills for so long now. And with the debacle and the 1.2 and the amount of money, not 1.2, but the amount of money that folks are paying every day for SCNG customers paying every day for that failed project, they just said that this is the time for solar. But of course, this goes now to the Senate, and you know, with several days left in legislative session, we don't really know its future right now. More on that after we look at what we heard today from the House floor, starting right now.
My bill had plenty of public hearings, plenty of public input. This bill is brought to you by the same folks that brought you the Base Load Review Act. I'm here representing the people and the consumers of our state. I'll admit to you, the utilities are not for my bill. They are opposed to this. As a matter of fact, they're doing everything they can to fight my bill, including telling a lot of lies, talking about things that aren't true, creating organizations that don't exist, filling your inboxes with a bunch of garbage. And you know what? For every email you get, it ought to make you feel even that much stronger about voting for 4421. And matter of fact, there would be no 5045. There would be no 5045 if there wasn't a 4421.
So now we're at a juncture. We need to make some adjustments. No disrespect to my good friend, Representative Smith, but there's some issues with 4421. It's not inclusive. It exempts 2/3 of the ratepayers in the state by removing the requirement that the co-ops, PMPA, municipal power providers, and Santee Cooper participate in the program. Now, prior to them being removed from the bill, they adamantly opposed that bill. It allows third-party power sales without becoming an operator. It doesn't require them to come under the purview of the ORS or the PSC. So then who would protect the ratepayer? It provides for subsidies by non-solar customers. You know, we spent a lot of time the past 8 months trying to correct a wrong that was caused by fast-paced legislation. Let's not make that mistake again.
Is there any part of 5045 or the amendment to 5045 which in any way seeks to eliminate the subsidy that all non-solar ratepayers have to pay?
Nothing.
Okay.
Zero. And that's why you should oppose this
amendment. So let me get this straight. In the last 3 months, I've had to explain to my constituents at home that 18% of their bill, if they're E&G customers, goes to pay for a failed nuclear reactor.
Yes, 1.2 million a day.
So this amendment today
yes.
Is asking those same ratepayers who are non-solar ratepayers
correct
to pay yet more in their bills for those folks that are pursuing and moving to put solar on their house. Is that correct?
Well, that is 100% correct. We have the highest rates, among the highest rates in the country today. Our solar policy and our energy policy is not working for the people of our state. We're no longer competitive in being able to attract industry because we have some of the highest rates in the country. And we got to change that. My bill will do 3 simple things. It takes the cap off. It eliminates any subsidy, right? So we no longer have people that are not using solar paying for the people that are using solar. I'm against that. That's wrong. And my bill will fix that. This bill and this amendment is a proverbial kicking the can down the road. And frankly, the utilities could care less if it's 2% or 4% or 10% or 100%, because guess what? They don't lose a dime. They don't lose 1 cent. If they lose on solar on one house over here, they get to go make it up down the street on somebody else that doesn't have solar. That is wrong, and that's what you will be voting for if you vote for this amendment in this bill. My bill, yes, it will cause Duke Power to lose about $1.2 million a year. They will make less money under my bill because I'm going to provide access to our citizens for a lower cost alternative that they can't go down the street and make up the loss. But you know, they pay their CEO $21.4 million a year in North Carolina. I think they can find ways to be more efficient. And I think it's up to us to decide what the policy of this state is on energy, not Duke or SCANA or anywhere else, because guess what? Guess what, my friends? Every day, $1.2 million of our citizens' hard-earned money is going to SCANA for nothing.
Now, like I said, that bill H4421 now heads to the Senate right in time for crossover day, but at the same time, the Senate is back on Monday. They're taking up the budget next week. The budget takes priority over everything else on the Senate calendar, so don't expect to see this debate happening anytime soon, especially since now this will have to go to a Senate committee. I don't know exactly which committee it will go to at this point, but that's where this bill goes to now. I mean, this bill took months to get through the committee process in the House. Don't expect it to rush through over in the Senate, especially after what we saw happen on the House floor, and especially with all the outside interests involved with this bill. So its future is not really bright, if we want to use a pun there, for this session, but at the same time, you never know exactly what could happen, and we haven't heard from the Senate yet about this bill, so stay tuned for more information about that. But also, like we said, it is crossover week, which means that crossover day rather on Tuesday, which means that bills from either the House or the Senate have to be sent over to the opposing chamber in order to have a high likelihood of making it possibly into law this year. But with the Senate being on the budget all next week, that means they won't be taking up any other bills besides the budget, and that means crossover day will come and go in the Senate with them discussing the budget and nothing else. And at that point, after if the Senate does pass the budget next week, that will leave 12 legislative working days left in the legislative session before the May 10th sine die deadline, which is when session ends. So a lot of things will start happening in the next month. And there's plenty of bills already on the Senate calendar that are up for debate on the Senate floor too. So bills that are working their way through the committee process really need to get kicked into high gear if there's any high likelihood of them actually getting through the process this year. But stick with SCE TV throughout the remainder of the 2018 legislative session, as we continue to bring updates every day, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 7 p.m. on ETV's Facebook page, our YouTube page, and my Twitter account, so you know what's going on up here and what the top moving situation is up here. You know, we go beyond the headlines, we go beyond the daily stories, and give you more than just the sound bites. We give you some more context from the people that are influencing these decisions up here that most of the time involve your money. So be sure to stick with us as we continue our march towards May 10th, the last day of session. Also, check out the State House Daybook at scetv.org every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as well, where you can find out what's going on up here, what meetings are happening, and where they're happening. And also check out some of the top state headlines from around the state, all in one place. We make it really easy for you. You don't have to go clicking around everywhere. You can find everything you need to know about state politics in one place on scetv.org. And listen to the South Carolina Lead podcast. We drop a new podcast every Tuesday where we talk to reporters from the Post and Courier who cover the top issues up here at the State House. Once again, we get more insight on those top issues and get an idea about what's going to be happening next. You can easily download the South Carolina Lead podcast or subscribe through your Apple iPhone podcast app. It's right there on your iPhone. So just search South Carolina LEDE and leave the rest to us. You can also listen to State House Week every Friday on South Carolina Public Radio, and be sure to check out This Week in South Carolina at 7:30 p.m. on SCE TV stations on Fridays. It's Friday at 7:30 p.m. on SCE TV with Charles Bierbauer. I'm Gavin Jackson for SCE TV in Columbia.